Look, to join us now to answer these questions for us is President for the American Principles Project, Terry Schilling, and Editor-in-Chief of National Memo, Joe Conason. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Joe, I'm going to start with you today. What do you make of some of the recent polls showing Trump's guilty verdict? You know, we've seen a major bump in fundraising for him too. Do you think these legal battles will have any influence on November?
I think they have an influence at the margin. I think, there are a lot of polls that showed that most Americans thought that the verdict was correct, was fair. And many people think Trump has committed some kind of offense. And at the margin, there are a certain number of people who said that they intended to vote for Trump in some of the polls who said they didn't think they would, or they were unsure now. I think a lot of people still don't know what happened in the trial. I think a lot of people don't know what the trial revealed about Trump. I think it's hard to feel sympathetic for Trump after what we learned in the trial. It's easier to feel sympathetic for Melania Trump because she was so embarrassed she could not show her face in the courtroom. And there was good reason for that. You found out things about Trump that are pretty unattractive in this trial. So we'll see what happens.
The trial was about
on.
Whether he correctly put stuff in the books. It was a books and records trial. It wasn't about any of that. That salacious stuff wasn't even really relevant.
But they did bring it up, though.
It shouldn't have been allowed, according to the rules of evidence,
It shouldn't have been allowed, but it was.
Well, anyway, submitted in evidence for a reason, and it was, it's there in the evidence.
Terry, what was that reason? I did go to law school, and it wasn't relevant. But go ahead, Terry. What was the reason they allowed that in? Judge Merchan, Democrat judge in Democrat town. What was the reason?
Well, they wanted to fix this thing up from the beginning. I think it's pretty clear to most voters in this country. If you look at this, the swing state polling that's coming out right now, Donald Trump is up by 5 points in North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada. He's tied in Virginia and Wisconsin. I mean, I think it's a hard case to make that this whole situation, this whole rigged trial, has not been building sympathy for Donald Trump. And we don't even need to look just at this election. We know what this happens, or that this is what happens from the Bill Clinton persecution, right? I mean, you can argue that that was a much fairer trial. We had him on obstruction of justice and perjury, but obviously voters looked at Republicans as going way too hard, and they sided with Bill Clinton in that whole debacle. So I think it's clear here the voters are rallying to Trump, and he's obviously raising tons and tons of cash. I've never seen my donors and supporters more fired up and worried about the future of this country.
Well, we'll see what the actual financial reports are when they report what they've collected. I'm not that sure that the reports that the campaign itself puts out should be taken as gospel. We'll find out. And it's true that he has a hardcore of supporters, a lot of them, who are willing to pony up money for almost anything. NFTs, old sneakers.
A lot of that money came from non-traditional supporters. A lot of the money came from non-traditional supporters, first-time donors, and almost every poll across the board shows independents went up a little bit for Trump.
Okay.
All right. Well, there you have it. All right, guys. 10 seconds left. Terry, wrap it up in 10 seconds.
Listen, I think that we're headed towards a historic victory for President Trump and the entire Republican Party. I think we're going to take back the Senate. We're going to take an even bigger lead in the House. And I think it's clear that this whole weaponization of government is going to be the biggest driver behind it all.
No poll that shows any of that necessarily, certainly not with the House or the Senate.
We will find out. That's why November 5th is so important.
We can talk about polls every week, guys.
We got to leave it there.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's leave it there, and we can save this for next time we have you both on. Terry Schilling and Joe Conason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great input, guys. Thanks.